morning, good afternoon, good evening, and for some of you, good night. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker for today on the CMO Talk Series, Simon Rost. Simon is, I would say, at an extraordinary juncture right now. He is part of a concatenation of some of the most extraordinary forces driving the world today. Within GE Healthcare, he's the CMO for their EDS business. And before I introduce the topic and what we are going to discuss about, Simon, would be lovely to hear a little introduction from you.
Simon Rost, I'm with GE Healthcare now for more than a decade in various sales and marketing positions, leading recently the marketing function for our enterprise digital solutions business here in GE. What is that at the end? I always explain it as follows. Healthcare is good in producing a lot of data. So the average hospital produces 50 petabytes of data. I made myself the work to calculate how many books you would need to capture that. So the most undigital things out there, which is books, you would need 8 billion books to capture this 50 petabytes, which is, let's say, the knowledge a hospital produces each year. If you are the doctor, the nurse, the caregiver that wants to, at the end, find this one sentence in this 8 billion books that cures a patient, becomes quite difficult, right? And there where technology comes into play. So we at Enterprise Digital Solutions, we basically break down data silos to find in all of these data points at the end insights, these nuggets of wisdoms that could help a caregiver to better treat a patient, to save time, to save money, and so forth. It's basically putting data to work for people. That's how I would describe it.
That's an extraordinary statement, Simon. So if every human being on the planet were to read one book a year, they still wouldn't have read enough books to cover one hospital's data output.
I mean, I always tend to say we have got basically data-rich hospitals, but they are insights poor, right? So they don't really know how to work with this data at this point in time. And there, as you know, technology can play a real important role.
Fantastic, extraordinary, Simon. And just to lay that up, at Markets and Markets, as you're aware, we study $25 trillion worth of revenue disruption. And there are 6 mega disruptions. I won't waste time talking about all 6, but one of the 6 is digital health. And as I said, you are sitting slam bang in the middle of that revolution. So Simon, today, as you're aware, in the CMO Talk Series, we have been exploring the distinction that marketers today face between efficiency and effectiveness, especially in the B2B world. Because most marketers today, if you speak with them, they will have established a great funnel. They have marketing qualified leads, moving to sales qualified, opportunity, closure, etc., etc. But most marketers, and especially CEOs, will say that while we are seeing that marketing engine running efficiently, lots of leads, a big funnel, it's not very effective tracking it to revenue, closure, the actual business impact seems to be very challenging these days. And definitely, I've spoken with a number of CMOs, and each has a different perspective to offer. But before we get deeper, because you have a perspective I am very interested in, I just wanted to, ask you for your opinion on this efficiency versus effectiveness debate. What do you think about it?
I mean, for sure, you see one data point is that you saw marketing budgets across the world going down in the last years, right? Year over year, you see that basically companies take marketing budgets out. COVID was not helping with that because that's the first, let's say, part where you would cut in these kind of extreme situations. On the other hand, marketing was always in the digital, let's say, space as well. And you see that this digital domain now becomes not just a marketing owned play, but also, let's say, a C-level play. So companies are investing in chief innovation officers, in chief digital officers at this point in time. So this, I believe truly that there is a point between this effectiveness and efficiency continuum you mentioned, but I think that technology can solve a lot of these, let's say, issues here. That's one thing. The second thing I truly believe we always talk about people and about how to deal with change, right? There's a lot of things out there where you hear mobile first, cloud first, digital first. I would still say this kind of people first and employee first, customer first is the first angle we should think of. And that's how I also, if you look at how I defined my marketing department and how I see marketing, it tries to basically solve this kind of issue that you just explained. I believe that in a company, marketing has to play 4 big roles. One, it has to be the strategic partner, right? And this means understanding the markets, understanding the customer, but also training and coaching in strategic topics, the C-level at the end. Strategic planning falls into that. Looking at these mega trends that you mentioned, the 6 ones, this plays into everything what I would call strategic partner. And that's a very important phase. You have to be the instigator of innovation within the company. The second big pillar or role that marketing should play is the differentiator. So one of my main tasks is to help the organization to differentiate my value proposition from others out there, from market companions, right? Because we all likely have good solutions in the digital health space. But why should you buy GE Healthcare Enterprise Digital Solutions and not one of our market companions? This includes new product introduction. This includes everything which is content marketing. This includes everything that helps me to differentiate my value proposal. The third big role, I see you talked about that. That's the one that likely is most established, which is marketing as revenue engine or as revenue generator, as growth engine, let's call it. That's all of the tasks that help you to generate a lead. And this is a quite wide spectrum. In healthcare, we are a quite conservative industry, so it's trade fairs, but also webinars and newer formats come into play here. And COVID told us a lot about these newer formats at this point in time. And the last role I see marketing has to play is marketing as enabler. So we have to enable our commercial colleagues, the sales force, to better sell at the end. This could be trainings. This is the entire tech stack that we can offer on the marketing side, our knowledge management system, our content management system, our CRM, our training tools. So everything that we can give to the sales rep that he or she can at the end sell better. And that's more or less how I would sum up the role of marketing. It's marketing as strategic partner, as differentiator, as growth engine, and as enabler. And that's how I also set up my team accordingly on a global level.
Fantastic. So, if I were to interpret those 4, and I will come to the one of the 4, which I find really very interesting, which I think will add a lot of value to our viewers today, Simon. But clearly, what you're talking about here is the strategic impact of marketing, both, let's say, as a leadership, in a leadership role, as well as in terms of the growth role. So marketing demonstrates the future. And I have a question to that, which I will ask you. The second, you have talked about the winnability within the funnel, which not a lot of marketers frankly talk about, which is the differentiation task, which means what you put in the funnel has to be won. It's not just about what you're putting into the funnel itself. But the third one, and let me start with that, which is marketing as an enabler and the focus on the commercial team or the sales team. And I found this very interesting, Simon. I have a pet theory myself. If you take any B2B company's SG&A, typically it may be in the 15 to 20% range on the P&L. And in the B2B world, as we are aware, marketing spends are not like B2C. And therefore, typically in most B2B companies, marketing spends may be 2, 3, 4%, unlikely to be more than that. Whereas the sales spend is 14, 15, 16%. So imagine what we're talking about here is if sales were to be looked at as a channel to market, then your spend in that channel is 5 to 6 times larger than your spend in the pure play other marketing channels. So it seems like a no-brainer that if I'm able to enable the sales team and as a marketer behave as if they are a channel, the impact I'll create on the business will be 5 to 6x, just in terms of resource that I can put into marketing. So can you now deep dive for us a little bit into what is it that you do? How do you create that impact, that effectiveness? Because this usually for most CMOs in B2B companies is not the first port of call. The first port of call is, here's the digital campaign, here's the event, here's the webinar, here's all that stuff. But sales is sitting there with 6x your investment, and enabling that is going to create huge impact. So very interested to hear. I know you've done a lot. So if you could talk us through that.
I mean, look, there's always a kind of, I would call it friction, but I would call it like healthy, let's call it healthy friction between marketing and sales. That's maybe to start with. Why is that? Because the sales rep, they are every day with the customer. They are working with the customer every day. And then marketing launches one telemarketing campaign and basically has a big success with one shot. Meanwhile, a sales rep has to work daily to get the deal over the finish line. This in our world is a little bit different. And I'll tell you why. Oh, sorry, it's not my watch. In our world, it's a little bit different. I'll tell you why. Because in software sales, these are long buying cycles on the one hand. And you also have to treat with various decision makers at the end. It's always a buying center taking a decision. And it's not always that cut clear that you can say, basically for hospital A, the CEO takes a decision, and it's always the same, right? It depends literally hospital by hospital how these decision centers are made up and who at the end has the main influence to bring the deal over the finish line. What we try with what I call sales enablement is to give all of these information to our sales rep to enable them to do a better job. And this is a good example for this is what we call sales plays. Think about a sales play as I always compare it to when I had to learn how to cook. You get the recipe, you get the ingredients, but the cooking you have to do yourself. And this is a similar kind of concept. We basically give a very prescriptive way of selling to our sales reps. We tell them, these are the personas that you should target. We upload these kind of targets already into our CRM. We tell them, these are your probing questions that you have to basically ask to see if this sales play would apply. Then we tell them, basically do exactly that. Send this collateral, ask them if they basically are interested in saving 4 million a year, for example, and share with them certain kind of proof points. And then what we expect from them, in contrary, is that they make themselves measurable, so that they tell us, we did all of these tasks, and now basically there is basically an opportunity or not. So it's a very prescriptive way of selling, where they give us frequent feedback, and then we adapt this kind of sales plays. An example is that they told us, okay, we went to the customer, we followed exactly the steps that you marketing told me, but we figured out that always one of our market companions basically already offered a similar solution to them. So we told them, okay, we will provide you with basically arguments why we are better positioned or differently positioned as our market companion. So these sales plays, they basically keep improving. On the other hand, our sales reps have to collaborate here. They have to make themselves, let's say, transparent. They have to tell us what they did, what worked, what didn't. And this is one of these examples where we clearly increased our funnel by 50% doing that. This didn't happen overnight. Krishnan, it's not something that you just do. And there's also, let's say, skepsis in the beginning. But what we did is we created a kind of frequent operating mechanism where we check back and said, like, look, it's a give and take at the end. We told them, what would you need from us that this works? Right? It took us, I would say, roughly 6 to 8 months to establish this new way of selling. It was also a clear top-down approach where our chief commercial officer and the chief marketing officer worked together to say that's a new way of selling that we are going to provide you guys with. And this is one of the examples, the sales place, where you created this trust with your sales force, where you heard also what they would need to sell better, and you implemented that. Technology, by the way, also plays a role with that. So what we used certain kind of technologies to roll this out. One is we made it easy for them to consume the sales place. So they were in what we call Showpad, that's our content management tool, but this was integrated seamlessly into their sales force, so into the CRM. They didn't have to swivel around screens and so forth. So we tried to make it very easy for them to consume this at the end growth tool. On the other hand, we did a lot of training, and we did a lot of, let's say, feedback sessions, and we took their feedback and improved the sales place time, day over day at the end. That's one of the examples where I believe enabling has a big play between marketing and the commercial forces.
It's very interesting, Simon. So what I heard you tell me is you flipped the customer experience backwards and then said, what does the salesperson have to do at each stage of the customer experience in terms of the initial contact, the probing questions, definition of problem, etc., etc. And you designed that and trained your salespeople to make that happen. And that leads me to actually the first question I had, which was also about the strategic partner, the growth enabler, as well as what you talked about here, Simon. So let's just take that growth enabler role you spoke of. Now, by definition, as marketing, when you play the growth enabler role, you are finding, perhaps you're expanding the target addressable market, or you're finding new markets, or you're finding a new vision of the future market, which I'm sure you are doing in as fast evolving a space as digital health. Now, by definition, when you point to that future change and say, I will help you drive growth, because what is happening today is not going to happen tomorrow. Something different will happen. That means that your sales colleagues and your leaders are being told by you of a future which has yet to happen. It's not there right now. And that demands a great deal of trust to buy into that vision and drive action towards that vision. How do you establish that trust? And you spoke a little bit about that, how you established it with the sales team. But the sales team, the leadership team, how does a CMO establish the kind of trust required to say, okay, this guy's painting a picture 12 months ahead. That picture doesn't exist today, but we'll buy that vision and we will go along with it. How do you make that happen?
I mean, it's a very tough question, Krishnan, I have to be honest. Let me think about that. One thing what I truly believe is powerful if it's not coming from the CMO, but if it's coming from the customer, right? That's something that that I try to frequently do with my team, so with my marketing team, but in my normal team meetings or with my leadership stuff, also with the entire organization in town halls, but also with the sales force, is you bring in a customer who tells you first, there are some customers who are more advanced, who even help us to shape certain kind of innovations. And we have an acceleration program called the Edison Accelerator, where we work together, where we co-create digital health solution with hospitals and with startups. So, but my point is, the first thing is, if you really want to create trust, I believe you should bring people in who are at the end the ones that pay my bill, and that I'm asking for what I want to create. So hearing from the customer frequently, as often as you can, is a very important one. And I tell my team, you have to see each let's say months 3 times of customers, 3 types. One, the one that you know and who's happy with what you do, which is likely they're important, but the second one, I tell somebody who's neutral, who's a customer, but somehow is silent, which there's a risk there as well, right? And an understanding need. And the third one is a customer who is not happy with what you are doing, because then you learn, right? But first thing to create trust, I believe, is to put the customer in the center of what you do and let them talk, basically, to say that the future I'm painting basically has a starting point here, and that's the reason why I do it. A second very important point in general, if you create trust, is the worst thing that you can do is overpromise and underdeliver. That's not just in marketing. I think that's a general tagline everywhere. If I tell you A and you get Z, you likely will not be happy. So if you create trust, you have to make many, many small commitments that you deliver on, right? So it's not telling you that's the future will look like that and give or take, right? You have to show them step by step, basically why they should trust in what you are saying. And there, for example, pilots and seeing is believing at the end. If you see that a software is already doing something that could improve the way of working in the healthcare space, this will create trust. So you need many small steps where you basically deliver on commitments. And a third very, very, very crucial one, I believe, is outcomes. If you can prove that at the end, who gives you the right to also tell stories, I would say, right? So if you would say that your software is increasing your effectiveness, let's say as a radiologist by 20%, this frees up 20% of your time. If you can prove that, so if you invest in outcome studies and showing that this is really happening, this creates trust as well. So these are three main things I believe that help to create the trust, not just with the sales team, also with my marketing team and with customers out there. Is first, put the customer in the center and get them in as often as you can. Secondly, you have to basically deliver on small commitments every day, step by step. And the third one is basically show outcomes and show give proof points. These are the main things I believe right now that help to create this trust. And that's on the marketing side, for example. I always try to if you see our collateral, it's always an outcome-based collateral where we say like that's what at the end our solution enables you to do: save time, increase throughput, save money, or free up time to spend it somewhere else. These outputs are measurable. And as I said, if you see them, you start to believe in the solution.
Simon, fantastic. For a question you found difficult and caught you by surprise, the answer you have given is just outstanding. I doff my cap to you. So pretty much my last question, Simon, which was somewhere in the middle of the three things you originally narrated, was the fact that you differentiate within the funnel for better winnability. So would you talk to us a bit about how do you handle that differentiation piece? Clearly, that's one of the things you do on both the sales enablement side, as well as, and one of the great things I thought you said in the previous question was the customer connectedness that you are creating with marketing. And quite frankly, a lot of marketing organizations do not directly connect with the customer, but you believe in that, and that's where you bring a lot of the insight, which is trustworthy from. So obviously that sets you up well, but how do you handle? So what's in the funnel now? You are differentiating it strongly. How do you manage that?
I mean, the first thing that is a very, I wouldn't call it old school marketing concept, but a very powerful, I would even call it management tool, which is segmentation and targeting. That's literally that you start to define who's your target customer, and you differentiate the segments. That's a very important one, and that's something which in many companies they use some kind of classification, I would say. So they base their kind of decisions on hospital size and so forth. I think in segmentation there's way more you could look at. You could look at behaviors. You could look at certain kind of past history and so forth. So segmentation targeting is a powerful tool. I believe that should be more applied. Then for me, it's also when you set your strategy, you have to decide what do you want to do. Do you want to basically grow your IB, or do you want to go after net new logos, right? And this likely or this defines a completely different sales approach, right? If you are in your own, let's say, installed base, you have more of a farmer's approach. If you are in And from the sales side, if you want to go after net new logos, you need to be more a hunter, right? But this your strategy decision to go to market also is an important one. And if you have decided this, you have to basically tailor your marketing programs to these kind of initiatives. A sales play, for example, is a very strong initiative in your installed base. So, right, because you know your customer, you have an existing product, you have a target, you do an upsell, right? If you want to generate net new logos, the effort is likely higher that you have to put into that, right? And you have to start way earlier in the awareness creation process and so forth. But this, the first step is basically segmentation and targeting. The second one is to then set your sales strategy after what kind of type you want to go. Is it an IB customer? Is it a net new customer? And adapt your go-to-market and your marketing programs to that. And then a very interesting one is the measurement of all of these things, right? I'm a strong believer. I sell at the end data management as a company, but I strongly believe in data points myself to steer your business. And I'm not talking about basically lagging indicators. I'm talking about leading indicators. And COVID told us, showed us strongly how you have to change your operating mechanism to adapt to this. In the past, we had normally report outs once a month or even a quarter, and you were looking into your funnel statistics, you're looking into how your conversion rate is doing and so forth. With COVID, we flipped that into weekly optics, where we said, like, look, let's define our 5 KPIs, we call them bowlers, that we want to go after, and let's continuously review them, not to do a report out, but to see how are they trending and when can we basically counteract or pivot if something is not working well. And so the measurement becomes also very crucial in this increasing your win rate at the end. And this is what we're still doing. We are looking into 5 to 6 KPIs as a leadership team weekly and see like how do we progress and where basically there are red flags. I always tell my team red is good. Because if this guarantees our job, we can still improve here, and that's what I think at the end you have to do. You have to first clearly define your customer and your strategy afterwards, how you want to go after them, tailor your product programs towards these let's say segments, and then frequently review the progress you are making there. Other things, also technology plays a very important role here. So we look into lead scoring, into propensity to buy models. All of that, I would say, is an add-on. Technology is always a tool, I would describe it, to improve what you are doing. But this kind of definition of who your customer is, then clearly dividing them into actionable groups, and then tailoring your marketing programs around that is very powerful. And then the second thing is the measurement of progress and the adaptation in case you have to pivot. And here as well, we learned a lot in COVID, right? Because you can, when you switch half of your, let's say, marketing toolkit from more traditional formats to newer ones, like webinars, like digital campaigns in social media, like email campaigns and so forth, you get real-time data that you could look at, right? You can see, like, I had a CEO who dropped after minute 15 in my webinar, and I see like the majority of C-level decision makers did that. So apparently something in my content was not good. So let's learn from that, right? So evaluating this kind of insights on a frequent basis, in our case, literally weekly, becomes very powerful.
Simon, that was my last question. So I think this many CMOs and to-be CMOs who are watching this session have learned tremendously from what you've said. Now, if you were to convert this learning to action, what are 3 things you think they should go into office tomorrow and do slightly differently or think about differently? What advice would you give our viewers?
That's a good one. I mean, I truly believe in being as close to where things are happening is important. This kind of, if you talk about this kind of lean mindset where you have to go to gamma, it's called, like go where things are happening. For me, talking to customers gives me quite a lot. And I'm doing this as often as I can. To external customers I'm talking here, and also to internal customers who are the salespeople. So being close to your main stakeholders, that's very important. It sounds something that is straightforward, but ask yourself how often you really have this customer conversations, and also having the difficult customer conversations, because there, I believe, is a lot of learning in there. So this would be the first thing that I think you should do. Be close to your target whenever and wherever you can. A second thing that for me personally helps a lot is trying certain things myself. So I'm not a person that learns conceptually. I have to see our software. I have to see how it behaves. In best case, also again, what I call in the wilderness, so in the hospital, in the workflow, to literally see how are your customers using your software. That's the best way to understand it for myself. I could do demos, but what I like more is to see it literally in the applied space. And then what is for me in marketing something that's way more needed is make data your friend. At the end, we can measure so many things today. And you get this kind of truth if you deep dive into the data and you take a data-backed approach to marketing. That's something where I pay a lot of attention, and where I also invest into tools that help me to do that, is to get this real-time data to be able to take better informed decisions going forward. So these are three advice that I would give to every marketer out there.
Simon, superb advice. Great session. I have learned a lot, and I know everybody watching and listening in today has learned a lot as well. I thank you so very much.
Thanks for having me.